Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. In this video I will be doing a in-depth dive as to how the world used to be divided. Now if we were to look in Oriental culture as an example, you would see that initially the world used to be divided by white and yellow. And you might say, what might that be? Well, let's take an in-depth dive into the story. In the Oriental nations, whether they be of China, Japan, Korea, on and on and on, in the Oriental nations, if you yourself were a man of power as a fighter, in your victories you would not be rewarded with money. You would be rewarded with either a field of rice or a field of corn. And we might see, well, where might that change? In the Americas, you see the corn aspect of things, the divide of the corn, which we see different colors of corn arise the more we venture into the depth of the Americas. But in terms of the Chinese and Japanese, whether you were of a samurai or of a particular master, upon your victories for said master, you would not be paid in money. You would be paid with fields of rice, which you are now responsible for cultivating and guarding. What might that cause? Well, for one, it creates not just revenue for you as a generational wealth, which from your sacrifices as said warrior, you're then granted with a kingdom you must guard and cultivate, which means you have to bring people to said location in order to cultivate and guard this particular field. And now the more you divide and expand the victories of said kingdom of said warriors, the more you would see the accumulation of wealth through the rice fields. Now that is in the Oriental cultures, whereas if we veer into the Americas, we then enter the land of corn. Whereas say in Aztec, Mayan, we then see the rewards of glorious warriors being rewarded with fields of corn. Now in terms of the actual symbolization, which is the world used to be divided by white and yellow, rice and corn, which is if you were of a successor, as an individual, you would essentially have a way of proving your victory based on the compound of your land, which was either white or yellow. Now let's dive into the modern world today. Where might we see the new divide in color? We now see the world could be divided between red and blue, which countries that specifically represented the color red within their flag meant they represented of a leftist ideology. Countries that represented blue within their country's flag or nation's flag represented a conservativeship. And countries that incorporated both, including white, were then seen as a democracy, where you had the choice to fill in the blank of which you would choose to choose from in the act of voting. Now the problem is, the more right we go or the more left we go, the more we enter the realm of a dictatorship, which in the idea of assimilating the people into the dictatorship, we then see an assimilation of values, which based on one particular individual, we then see an entire culture shift based on one particular individual's values, known as the leader. What happens when the leader no longer represents the values of said nation? Well, in ancient times, they would be slaughtered and ganged upon, where we would actually have swarms of people flooding to capture. Similar to the, you could say, guillotine type mentality. If a ruler was not fit for its people, the people had the right to revolt. And as far as I know, there are far more people than there are rulers. But rulers have protectors such as police force and military. The question now is in the individual regarding the moral compass, which in European Parliament, in terms of European moral compass, we then see they have just killed off God in their culture, essentially. They have made it persecutable to be of a Christian faith, which means if you represent your faith with symbols such as a cross, or simply seek to practice your faith within Europe, you can now be arrested. Not just as a European, but as a foreigner migrating or vacating to Europe. Which means if you're either an immigrant or simply a tourist, if you are of a Christian faith, well, the Europeans can basically now go, hey, there's a Christian here, we gotta arrest him, kill him. And we see the divide in the left and right. The left, the red, the right, the blue. And the more we implement the shift in colors, we then see different values arise, such as green, yellows, orange, on and on and on, which in these particular parties, you then see the value for environmentalism, slightly more socialist, on and on and on. But in the idea of dividing the world based on color is not meant to be an idea representing the actual color of the people. We can divide ourselves according to color all we want. You go here, I go here, and we all live wherever the hell we want to. Zero moral compass. And the more we implement a zero moral compass type mentality, well, essentially we see the degeneration of society. The more we improvise leftist ideology, the more we see a decrease in livelihood and the ability to sustain life as a country. Do we want to experience famine, lack of resources, complete control of our lives and faiths, even to the idea you are not allowed to believe that? It is punishable by imprisonment. Imagine being told, if you believe this, you will be sent to prison. Now imagine we say that regarding an entire religion. If we can say it about one religion, why can't we say it about all religions? And in the idea of destroying religion, which is the leftist ideology, the death of God, in order to essentially create a lesser value in human life. The moment you kill off God in the human experience, you lose faith, you lose hope. And the moment hope is gone, you accept your death. And you are no longer going to stand up for yourself. You have been dehumanized to that point. You're willing to give up, to give in. Temptation, boom, take me now, I'm ready. But in terms of the actual standing up for yourself, pushing against those that push you back, in the idea of a government or a dictatorship, if an individual or a leader or a parliament makes it illegal for its people to believe in a faith, meanwhile preaches other faiths regarding butchering your children into sexless individuals, butchering your women, your children, men, and we get to the point where we have zero value for life, a leftist ideology. Which Christians value life. We value women. We value children. We value men. And we see the complete opposite of these particular values, which thank you for displaying that to the world as a European Union. as a European Parliament, you have just displayed the level of corruption you are actively seeking to practice within said nations. Why would I want to go to Europe now? Even as a tourist, I can be arrested for simply being a person of faith. And it might start with one faith, but eventually it will lead to all other faiths. Which in the idea, they might have, well, if we get rid of this culture or this religion, we can implement newer religions and cultures. And the more we implement newer and newer religions, sorry to break it to you folks, but in the idea of preaching religion is wrong, you should not say that to people if you actually valued life. Where when we see the idea of preaching a religious belief to a society, beginning at children. There is a new religion regarding butchering children. And this is implemented in the leftist ideology. What might that be? I leave that to answer for you. But in terms of the actual fundamental value regarding the death of God, the death of God stems in the dehumanizing aspect of the human life, which the more we dehumanize human life and lesser value for it, the more leftist we are, the more we are ready to die off as humans, resulting in not just the death of God, but the death of man himself. Thank you.